farmers are out on the streets right now protesting a new law that has recently been passed in the Dutch parliament that basically forces them to give up at least 30% of their livestock before 2030. So the Dutch government is expropriating these farmers' land under the guise of a new nitrogen law. They're saying that the Netherlands, our tiny small country that you can see on the map, has a dangerous nitrogen crisis that suddenly needs all of these actions and measures, and well, the farmers are the ones that are going to have to pay for it, and the state is taking their land. So obviously, if someone would come into your house and say, I'm going to take 30% of what you own and you have nothing to say about it, you'd be angry too. And that's exactly what these farmers are doing right now. They're showing that they are not having this. So they're out on the street, they're protesting, they have blocked the freeways, they have blocked distribution centers, and they're basically saying this is what is going to happen if you take our land away. We're going to have food shortages because already right now, the Dutch supermarkets, a lot of the shelves are empty.
Yeah, well, and here in North America too, inflation is high, especially for food. The idea of deliberately ending 30% of your livestock capacity seems insane. But I just want to get back to the one word that stuck in my ear. I've heard for years people talk about carbon dioxide and carbon emissions. And I happen to know that carbon is one of the most common elements. You can see it in the word carbohydrate or carburetor. We're made in large part from carbon trees. It's a building block of so much. And you can believe in the theory of man-made global warming or not, but that's carbon dioxide. Nitrogen, that's just another element in the periodic table. I think most of air is nitrogen, like more than 3/4 of what makes up air is nitrogen, and there's oxygen. Like, I've just never heard nitrogen, which is all around us, being called an enemy of anything. What are they worried about with nitrogen? It sounds laughable to me.
It is laughable, and that is what you should take away from this. It's not a real crisis. Obviously, nitrogen isn't a problem, especially not when you consider the fact that, well, the Netherlands, like I said, is such a small piece of land.
Yeah.
We have our neighboring countries, Belgium and Germany, that don't have to implement any of these measures, but the Dutch government is doing it. And the real reason, obviously, behind it is that the Dutch state wants the farmers' land. Because probably there are a couple of reasons. So the farmers, first of all, they're a group in society that are very self-reliant. They are basically ungovernable in that sense. You know, they own a lot of the Dutch land, and they produce agricultural products. They have livestock. They produce beef. And what's interesting to know is that the Dutch minister who has pushed this nitrogen law has a brother-in-law who is the owner of the Dutch online supermarket called Picnic. Guess who invested $600 million in Picnic last year? Right, Bill Gates, the man who wants you to eat fake meat.
And, you know, that's not just a conspiracy theory. I know, for example, that the head of the Netherlands, am I pronouncing his name right? Rutte? How do you pronounce the name of the leader of the Netherlands? He's a serious member of the World Economic Forum, too. What's his name?
Mark Rutte. Yes,
Rutte.
Mark Rutte is very, very deeply involved in the World Economic Forum. And, well, it's obvious that this law is a product, again, of these globalist institutions. Yeah. Because this needs to happen before 2030. Rings a bell, right? Agenda 2030, the Great Reset, World Economic Forum. It's very clear that this is a made-up crisis, which we've seen before with these organizations. That's the way they handle, that's the way they operate these things. They say, we have a crisis, and you are the ones that are going to have to solve this by giving up all of your rights. Yeah. So that's what's happening here. They're taking away these farmers' land. They're taking away property because they see a future for us in which we're completely dependent on the state. You eat bugs, and, well, they own your land. You own nothing, and you'll be happy is what they say to you. But these farmers are not happy, and I'm so proud that they're fighting this.
Yeah, well, you know, it's really reminiscent of the trucker.
You guys and us, we basically serve as these pilot countries for the rollout of this 2030 agenda for the World Economic Forum. And the way that Trudeau has handled the crisis there, and the way that he took away your rights, the rights of the unvaccinated, and the way that the protests have been handled by the truckers are something that we are looking at and saying, okay, we basically have the same type of treatment coming from our government. Mark Rutte and Trudeau are, closely. We've seen them before closely, in social settings, being very friendly to each other. And while they're very similar in the way that they view the world, and they have the same globalist policies. And the Dutch farmers have really looked also towards the Canadian truckers, and you can see that in the interviews that they're giving right now. They're saying that. They're saying the way that the truckers have stood up against Trudeau is the way that we want to stand up against Mark Rutte. And they're being supported by Dutch truckers as well, Dutch fishermen. So you guys have set a great precedent there that we were very happy to learn from, and I hope that it has the same effect.
Did you know that Bill Gates is currently the largest owner of farmland here in America? In fact, just a few weeks ago, Bill Gates was granted the legal authority to purchase another 2,100 acres of land over in North Dakota. And that was all despite heavy protests by the local residents there. With this new purchase, Bill Gates now officially owns 270,000 acres of land across 20 different states. And if you look at a map, you'll see that his largest plots are in Nebraska, Louisiana, Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Idaho, as well as Ohio. However, the big question here is obviously this: why would a tech billionaire like Bill Gates be buying up so much farmland? And as of right now, he hasn't disclosed his real intent. However, given the fact that lawmakers across the political aisle are now warning of possible food shortages, and with Bill Gates himself funding research in both synthetic meat as well as bug-based food, well, we can safely assume one of two courses of action. Either he'll work at consolidating the production of food here in America, or he might be working to produce alternative foods for the American consumer. Only time will tell.
A village in the Dutch province of Gelderland in central Netherlands, thousands of farmers have assembled, protested against the government's far-reaching plans to cut nitrogen emissions. This is one of the largest ever demonstrations by the farmers. They're driving in with their tractors, blowing horns and causing widespread traffic chaos. The Dutch farmers are demanding the scrapping of recently announced plans by the Hague-based government.
I'm here for my future. I see my future falling apart. Not in 10 years, but sooner. And if you get up at 4:15, 7 days a week for your cows, I think they didn't quite get in the Hague. We are not just driving around a tractor.
Netherlands is the world's second largest agricultural exporter, but it is also one of the top greenhouse gas emitters in Europe, especially of nitrogen. And much of this is blamed on cattle-produced manure and fertilizers. But farmers say they are being unfairly targeted as opposed to big businesses and industries. Many are vowing to resist any plans to scale down or close farms. The Dutch government plans to cut greenhouse gas nitrogen by as much as 70% by 2030 in 131 key areas. Many of them are close to nature reserves. This means a 40% drop in emissions is expected from farmers. And this could result in around 30% less cattle. The government's announcement comes in the wake of a 2019 ruling by the country's highest administrative court. It accused the Netherlands of not doing enough to protect its natural areas.
Het was bij
large fire at picnic building in Almere. A lot of smoke is released during the fire, which can be seen for miles around. The fire hospital is not affected by the smoke. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe to our channel, Zenith Institute on YouTube, and follow us on Facebook.